Hey everyone, welcome back to another one of my videos from Psyched About Life. So today is going to be a quick video, a continuation video, which we spoke about the id, ego, and the superego by our dear friend Freud. This video is from Carl Jung, and Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. He brought shadow work into a more public view within Western culture. And this video particularly looks at the shadow. So Carl Jung was really interested in the archetypes and the collective consciousness. And honestly, I've been seeing a lot of shadow work on TikTok, so I felt like this video kind of highlights some of the stuff that's popular today, and a lot of people are choosing to do shadow work, and I think that that's awesome. So this video is going to be kind of like an intro of the shadow and also just tie it all together in a conclusion. So let's start out with Freud and Jung were both interested in the unconscious mind. They worked together and they were doing extensive research, particularly in dream studies. So Carl Jung was also particularly interested in the shadow, part of the unconscious mind. So it's kind of, when we look at shadow work, for instance, it's really to obtain the psychic wholeness, the things that are buried down in our unconscious minds, to complete a better picture of ourselves and who we are. So a lot of the times people do shadow work to kind of uncover things that they have about themselves that aren't in the conscious awareness or conscious mind. And that's why a lot of people have a lot of unhealed trauma. Maybe they also have things that they didn't know about themselves that they kind of want to dig down deep, and maybe they want to take the route of shadow work versus therapy, even though I think therapy is awesome for everyone. I think therapy is just an awesome route for healing and growth, and I am interested in doing some shadow work as well. So we're not going to dig too deep into the personality archetypes, or just archetypes in general and collective unconscious, but I do have a book, Carl Jung's Archetypes and Unconscious Minds, Collective Unconsciousness, it's a heavy read, it's very wordy, and there's a lot of jargon. It's not an easy read. In fact, this is what a typical page looks like a very widespread view conceives spirit as a higher and psyche as a lower principle of activity. So that's just an example of kind of what the read's like, but let's get back to the shadow. So what is the shadow? The shadow exists as a part of the unconscious mind. Okay, I sound like a broken record, right? It really is composed of the repressed ideas, weaknesses, desires, instincts, and shortcomings. The shadow forms out of our attempts to adapt to cultural norms. Shadow work is the idea that we all have different parts to ourselves. The parts of ourselves that have been exiled become our shadow. So it's kind of like the stuff that's not brought into the light directly. And if you've seen the other video that I posted about id, ego, and superego, we know that each of those three elements of a person's personality kind of have a function, right? So we talked about how parts of ourselves are suppressed or repressed. Sorry, I always get mixed up with those words. And are kind of put into our unconscious minds, or are just kept hidden, and eventually, or if we choose to do the route of therapy, we choose to do some other healing works or shadow work, we see that we kind of take those parts and we dig further into our identity. As a child, for example, there are many times you're told to stop doing something or repress parts of yourself that for whatever reason have been deemed unacceptable by your parents or the bigger picture by society. One of the views of shadow work is that you're trying to make a deeper connection to yourself, your true self, right? The identity, which we saw was kind of like an iceberg. It's mainly in water. It's mainly submerged in water, and you can't really see it. It's not clear. And as a child, this is kind of, we're born with this identity, but the ego shapes it. The superego is like the ideal self, right? and it's that bigger ego, and it's who we aspire to be, the moral self. But when we dig into shadow work, we see that those parts of us that we kept hidden for so many years, and some of us because of trauma, maybe generational trauma or personal childhood trauma, whatever the case may be, it's suppressed. So the benefits of shadow work, let's get into that too. Feeling whole or integrated as a person, having a better understanding of yourself, your weaknesses, your strengths, improved interactions with others, healing generational trauma or trauma from your family, maybe stuff that they've also projected onto you, learning healthy ways to meet your needs. And if you check on healthline.com, it also goes further into that too. So what are some ways that we repress our shadows? And not just our ego, but what are some other ways or forms of repression? Some people may turn to drugs or alcohol. Some people may talk negatively about themselves. They'll engage in negative self-talk. They may experience a lot of stress, increased cortisol levels, experience mental health difficulties like depression and anxiety. Instead of confronting what's hurting us, you take your pain out on yourself. So instead of just facing it for what it is, we kind of keep it pushed down, bottled up inside. That's kind of the purpose of shadow work. It kind of allows us to confront those demons, right? And it may take a lot of courage. It may take a lot of energy, but if we really stay true to, why we want to do it in the first place, if we remember the whole bigger picture, maybe that can give us the courage that we need. So again, the shadow really is, these life instincts that we have, our desires, our shortcomings, our weaknesses, repressed ideas. And one interesting thing that I just want to mention briefly is that Jung suggests that the shadow can appear in dreams or visions, and also may take a variety of forms. So I'm not an expert in shadow work. I'm not an expert in all of these, psychoanalysts, but I do have a psych degree. I do have a master's degree. I do have this passion for psychology. So that's kind of why I wanted to make this channel. But one of the archetypes is the shadow, and that's why it's really fascinating to see kind of, okay, I saw this video on TikTok, but what does that mean? And there's so much to it, so that's kind of what I want this channel to also do, is like bring awareness, all of these psychologists and all of these interesting, cool, fascinating theories, and why it's so relatable, and why we should actually give it a shot, look into it, and read more. If you prefer reading, read. If you prefer online websites and online documents like I do, I did buy the book, but I feel like it's just so wordy. It's just so, like you read it and you're like, I don't know what's going on. When does it stop? A little painful. I would suggest doing some online research. Definitely online's a little bit easier. So anyway, that was just a little video about the shadow and shadow work. I just think another video that kind of ties this all into like the dream interpretations would be really cool. So thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for more videos. Next one is probably going to be dream interpretation. So that's going to be out next week. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye.